I would be thinking about you as I was recovering.
Yeah, that's what I, that's
Focus on game controllers. Here, there's app library and widgets on your home screen.
Is the importance of rest. How important is sleep into one's health, and whether it be into gaining muscle or just doing things, just health altogether. Sleep. How important is it, and how many hours of sleep should people strive to get every night?
Yeah, sleep is super important, and I've been one of those people who's struggled some with sleep. I can have nights where it's really hard for me to fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And generally what's recommended from a health standpoint is 7 to 9 hours. A lot of times people will say 8 hours in the middle of those two. But it's also apparent that there are individual differences. Some people can function with less sleep than that, and it doesn't seem to lead to similar problems with, say, not getting as much done at work, or some of the things that we can see from day to day for an individual who has less sleep. Now, whether or not it might lead to chronic health conditions quicker than the next person is something that has yet to be fully determined, because we'd have to follow somebody out over the course of their life, and they'd have to have kind of regular patterns like that for a long period of time. So it's a bit more difficult to study. But it appears as though if people in general get less sleep, it's not great for their overall health. And as an example of something that I kind of mentioned earlier with, say, the stress hormone cortisol, if we don't get much sleep, that stress hormone is likely to be higher in our body. And so it can be counterproductive for an individual who's trying to gain muscle, gain weight in general, because the stress hormone will start to break down, again, the muscles in the body, and just starts to break down things in the body. But it can also be counterproductive to an individual who is trying to lose weight. And so I'd say for your health overall, it can be counterproductive to not get enough sleep. So say I'm getting 4 or 5 hours at night, which I've had periods in my life, especially when I was working on my dissertation, where that was more normal for me. And even though I knew it wasn't great for my health, it was like a period of time where I was like, I have to write my dissertation. The timeline's not moving.
I get it done somehow, some way.
Yeah. And so I knew that. And so I understand. I think young parents often kind of face that same dilemma, like, okay, but I have a child that's screaming at me. And so I can tell myself I need 8 hours of sleep. You know, like there are different phases of life, I guess I'd say, that might cause you to not get as much sleep as you need. So in general, I'd advocate for 7 to 9 hours, 8 hours. Some people require a little bit more than that, but from a weight loss, weight gain standpoint, I guess I didn't finish what I was saying about weight loss. So weight loss, if I'm trying to lose weight, but I am only sleeping 4 hours at night, think about it like this. I've got 20 hours during the day where I could be eating. And so if I'm awake for 20 hours, instead of 16 hours, oftentimes that leads to a person consuming more food, especially if they're tired in those later hours of the day. Your body commonly mistakes that feeling of being tired as like, oh, I need more energy. What it needs is physical sleep, but then it'll like crave or want for more calories because it's like lacking energy. And so it misperceives in a sense that need for energy that would be required from getting physical sleep and like the rejuvenation that would come from that, and then asks for food. So people commonly eat more food when they're not sleeping enough, or actually if they're sleeping too much.
I was about to say, what about people that sleep too much?
Yeah, when you sleep too much, and part of this could be that pattern is commonly associated with depression. But they found, as they've studied this, is that people who sleep too much throughout the day, they tend to consume more food than the next person. So like hour by hour, they end up taking more calories than the next person, which based on what I just said, you might be thinking, well, that doesn't necessarily make sense. Like, so what if I'm only awake for 10 hours per day, then I'm probably likely to eat less? Well, it's weird because it seems like there's a sweet spot, like in that 7 to 9 hours. And if we get too much or too little, it's like, it messes with the hormones in our body is the likely culprit for a lot of this. And so it causes your body to sense certain things. And so if we don't find ourselves in that sweet spot, it can dysregulate hormones and all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, to touch on that, is it some like if you get too much sleep that like when you wake up and you eat too much, is it like your body trying to catch up with the calories that it missed out on? Kind of for me personally, like if I oversleep, I wake up starving. Like I wake up, like I already wake up hungry. I'm one of the people that wake up, I'm hungry to eat breakfast every time I wake up. But if I get too much sleep, I'm waking up, I'm going to eat the biggest breakfast I've ever had in a while. Like, is that a thing as to why that happens? Like, just because you're sleeping too much, that your body's missing out on the calories, especially if you're like on a normal schedule of a daily eating routine, like you eat at certain times of the day. Like, does your body just react that way because you're missing out on the calories that you're supposed to get throughout the day? Is that the case, would you say?
I'd say it's probably a bit more complicated than that, but it
Okay.
could be, I mean, like if we think about breakfast, it is breaking your fast. And
Mm,
so if you go for a longer period of time fasting, your body is likely to crave more. Like we talked about this in class, Kendall, you had me. It's like if I go 8 hours without eating during the day, a lot of times I'm ravenous by the time I actually sit down and eat, and I crave a lot of fat and sugar because my body wants
right.
like quick energy. And so like I start craving things that are not as healthy, not as nutrient dense as maybe another option would be. And so if I am fasting in a sense for a long period of time, which just happens to be associated with sleeping, I would expect similar things to happen. But it's probably not just that, because like I mentioned, a lot of times sleeping longer could potentially be connected to things like depression, for example. And so we don't know how much of it could be something like that. And depression, like, dysregulates your hormones a lot. We have these appetite regulating hormones that are called leptin and ghrelin, and those can be thrown off if we're sleeping different amounts of time or too much. And so I'd say that could be a potential reason that like our body gets really more and more hungry the longer we are not eating. But there could be other factors at play, and that it's probably more complicated than just like the sort of simplistic understanding of only that, although it certainly does play a part.